So we are in Smolensk. We leave the hotel to go down to the embankment in the city center. It's not far from here. This is what our hotel looks like inside and out. It is decorated by one of the local artists. Perhaps not everyone likes this design, but it stands out perfectly against the background of many faceless small hotels. And for an artist, this is a great opportunity to express himself, isn't it? The entire center of Smolensk is on the hills. There are unexpectedly steep ascents and descents here. Our hotel is also located on one of the hills, and from here you can see quite a distance. Previously, there was a Lutheran cemetery in this grove, which was destroyed a long time ago. Now the trees cover this corner from the wind and city noise. The place is very secluded, although located in the city center. You can't even see or hear the birds at the feeders. Here is the church of St. John the Evangelist on the neighboring hill. This is one of the oldest Smolensk churches. It was built in 1173, during the pre-Mongol era. Of course, it was not preserved in its original form and was destroyed and restored several times. Its latest restoration is still ongoing. We walk along the Dnieper River and the fortress wall of Smolensk in the direction of the Assumption Cathedral. The river bank is very high and the embankment has several levels. The weather is very gloomy and dank, not at all typical for the end of January in these parts. According to the climate, there should be severe frost and a lot of snow here now. But indeed, an endless thaw has set in. It's unlikely that we'll last long on the river bank in this weather, but we'll try. The opposite bank looks quite strange. There is a large market there, or rather a market complex. It does not fit into the historical center of the city at all. There is some kind of construction going on in the foreground. Overall, the appearance is very unattractive. It's also high time to put the embankment in order. Its appearance up close now leaves much to be desired. The walls, railings, and bridge supports are defaced with graffiti. The Pyatnitskaya Tower has also not been preserved in its original form. It was completely destroyed by an explosion in 1812, when Emperor Napoleon's troops left Smolensk. The tower church that now adorns the Dnieper embankment was built in 1816. On the other side of the Assumption Bridge, you can see the church of St. Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Like most churches in Smolensk, it has not retained its original appearance. After destruction during the Second World War, the temple was restored in a new appearance. The fortress wall was built at the beginning of the 17th century. Once it was a closed perimeter and surrounded the entire city. At one time, it played a huge role in the defense of not only Smolensk, but also the entire Russian state. The fortress suffered the most during the War of 1812. Less than half of the towers have survived, which are now scattered here and there around the central part of the city. Models of the fortress wall in different historical periods can be seen in the Historical Museum of Smolensk. The surviving towers now also house various museums dedicated to the history of the city. In general, the embankment disappointed us. In this wide space separated by a wall from the noisy city street, anything could be built. They could plant trees here, or at least create flower beds, make a cafe, or just gazebos. However, who thought that an embankment needed here? There are no interesting views from this place. Perhaps it would be worthwhile to improve both banks at the same time. As expected, we quickly froze near the river. We need to go back to the hotel and warm up at least a little. We turn back and go up Studentskaya Street. A brick building which the almshouse of the merchant Lanin was located. It is adjacent to the fortress wall and the Pyatnitskaya tower. There is a hotel and restaurant nearby. On the other side of the street, which used to be called German, buildings in the classical style have been preserved. Among them there are completely new buildings, stylized as half-timbered. The center of Smolensk, although it looks unkempt, makes a pleasant impression. This city has its own spirit and its own mood. I want to explore him, look at him, get acquainted with his life and history. As in all pretty cities, Smolensk attracts not only the sights, but also ordinary buildings from different times. They create a unique ensemble that attracts the eye. This is one of the small hotels in the center of Smolensk. From here it is convenient to go down to the river, but it is inconvenient to go up to the rest of the city's attractions. We return to the warm hotel room to rest, have a snack, and think about where we would go next. This staircase leads to the hotel cafe, which is located on the ground floor. The cafe's ambience fully matches the bright style of the rest of the hotel's interiors. After lunch, we decided that in this weather we would hardly be able to show the city during the day. We'd better come back here when it gets brighter and warmer. Today we will take a walk around the evening Smolensk. There are still Christmas trees, garlands and other festive decorations on the streets. It's an early weekend evening. We leave the hotel and go to the Lopatynsky Garden, the main park of Smolensk. We continue to climb the hill along Bakunin Street. We didn't go from the hotel to the center by car, because we didn't know what the parking situation was like here. In order not to become exhausted ahead of time, we plan a short ascent and a long descent. Lopatynsky Garden is the highest place on our route. The park was created in 1874 on the site of the former royal fortress. Initially, the garden was limited by the ramparts of the royal fortress, on which gazebos and flower beds were erected. A wooden two-arch bridge was thrown across the pond, and the other, a stone bridge, is located further. They have the romantic names Bridge of Kisses and Bridge of Sighs. This winter there is even a fountain. The garden was named Lopatynsky in honor of the Smolensk governor Lopatyn, who supervised the improvement of this park. Lopatyn ruled the Smolensk province since 1871. Thanks to his leadership, it was a time of growth in industry, finance, trade, education, healthcare and culture. In 2015, a monument to Lopatyn was unveiled at the central entrance to the park. We leave the Lopatynsky Garden through the main entrance and continue our walk along the pedestrian area. Behind the small square with live Christmas trees, there is another artificial Christmas tree in the middle of Lenin Square. Christmas markets and attractions are still operating next to it. There is a skating rink here, but some work is currently being done on the ice. Next to the skating rink, it seems that the only small pile of snow in the entire Smolensk region remains. The kids have built a slide here and are riding around, probably in other winters. When the weather is typical winter, real big snow slides are built here. To the right of the square is another city park, Blunier Garden. On the left is the building of the government of the Smolensk region and the Smolensk Drama Theater. The pedestrian Lenin Street is somewhat reminiscent of Arbat Street in Moscow. There are also many cafes and restaurants in the lower floors of houses. Stands with photographs are installed, souvenirs are sold, and artifacts of Soviet times are exhibited. Lenin Street intersects with Bolshaya Sovetskaya, the main street of the city. It descends steeply to the river. By the way, Smolensk has a characteristic feature. Soviet names, symbols, monuments have been preserved here and now, many years after the collapse of the USSR. Historical names of streets and squares are located in the city in special plaques. However, there were no mass reverse renamings, as in other Russian cities. Overall, it seems that the city is suffering greatly from a lack of investment. For example, the Assumption Cathedral is the main symbol and calling card of Smolensk. We expected that in the evening it would be beautifully illuminated, and from Bolshaya Sovetskaya Street, the view of it would be no worse than during the day. But our expectations were not met. This is the Spaso-Voznesensky convent. It was first built in 1550 and restored several times. This is one of the buildings we came across that was particularly interesting for its location. And this modern building is a cultural and exhibition center. There are educational and entertainment events for children and adults. Although walking around the center of Smolensk definitely requires effort, it is better not to come here in uncomfortable shoes. The narrow streets are not as windy as on the shore, and in the evening light the city looks cozier. Our walk can be considered a good reconnaissance for a longer visit to Smolensk. We learned how the ups and downs are located. We saw that in the city center on weekends you can find convenient places for free parking. We assessed the views of the city from different points, the availability and quality of evening lighting. We realized which places you don't need to visit at all, either on foot or by car, and which ones, on the contrary, should be given more attention in more suitable weather. We've heard the rumors that renovations are planned in the city center. We hope that by our next visit to Smolensk, they will have already begun. Thanks for watching. Stay and travel with us. Subscribe to the channel, share your impressions, and ask questions in the comments. See you again.